Welcome to the final episode of this video essay. It's time to draw conclusions. Before we get going, let's bring our focus to something that is actually quite serious. This is, I guess, what you can say, an attempt to try to help my followers or watchers to see the severity of some of the issues I've tackled. There is this aspect of something being really danger to humanity. Let's for a moment look at the numbers of human cost of Nazi regime during the 30s and early 40s, during the 20th century, during the first part of 20th century. In principle, we could do the same number crunching with regards to Soviet communism, especially during Stalin era. But for the purposes of presentation, I have chosen to try to highlight the human cost of Hitler's Third Reich. These numbers are quite a harrowing read. During the Second World War, 25 million, I repeat, 25 million Russians were killed. 6 million Jews lost their lives. 8 million Germans died. 400,000 Americans died. I'm from Finland. Finnish population at that time was about 3.7 million. From that number, there was a loss of about 80,000 people during the wartime. When we still have these anti-democratic ideologies amongst us, as a major societal influence. What past tells us is that when they take over, either by democratic means or undemocratic means, this is what we can expect. And make no mistake about it, if you vote in democratically a wannabe Hitler, they will start drawing plans of wars. It is in their nature, the essence of going after living space. They feel they have the right to. If a wannabe strongman is ready, they will move from thinking about aggressive invasion of other territories to actually following through these aggressive acts of invasions. It is my firm belief that if we continue with the current political trajectory, somewhere along the line there will be a new fascist regime with all its warring and killing. It's inevitable, like a next bus stop, another round of fascist madness. It's also my understanding that currently Fascism poses more of a danger than extreme left-wing ideologies. Large parts of population seem to be flirting with new authoritarian ideologies. I do not know if this part of population can even be reached anymore, at all. So I try to address my words to a part of population that has fallen under the sway of normalizing this right-wing extremism trend. Do you want a society of fear and oppression? Do you want genocides? Do you want prison camps? I know what my answer is. I don't. So there is humanitarian aspect in all of this. It has informed and motivated my presentation. But there is also a bit more pragmatic and even utilitarian perspective to why I'm doing all of this. I firmly believe that what I have tried to highlight during my essay constitutes something of a key component for the healthy thriving of modern democracies. I hope this essay helps us collectively to become more aware of the dark forces of strife lurking behind the public arena of our democratic decision-making processes. And it's not that we should try to abolish completely these forces of strife and discord, which foster confusion and chaos. It's not that I suggest we should eliminate them, exclude them, do away with them, or expel them to some distant foreign country. What I'm proposing is that we make these attempts to corrupt our democracies more of a difficult task, more arduous. And hence the central role given to the scientific communities. Because for me the essence of these communities, discourses or language games, is ideal for the task of making attempts of trying to corrupt democratic processes as difficult as possible. Let's, for argument's sake, imagine a situation that someone with years of being a political leader of a new Nazi party makes a career change of becoming a scientist. Let's say his or her interest is to validate scientifically theory of white supremacy. Just think of how difficult it is for this type of a person to get the rest of the scientific community behind his scientific ideas. There will be a lot of pressure from his scientific community to show proof whether his ideas on white supremacy actually fit into what we currently know about different types of intelligence and their correlation to races, for example. His papers will be constantly subjected to peer criticism in lectures, reviews and other publications. Also, any attempt at scientific fraud will be closely monitored. There is also another angle to why this person's attempts can be somewhat of an uphill battle, and that is the fact that scientists are trained to look at things from multiple angles. They never propose absolute truths, only provisional ones, the most probable truth based on what they currently know. And this kind of maturity with regards to dealing with truth does not fly well or fit well together with ideas of white supremacy, because it and other fascist ideas are based on crude simplifications and immature generalization of good guys versus bad guys, deserving and not deserving. And this makes the life of this neo-Nazi scientist very difficult. Relating to all above, I think in our current situation we have a good place to start practicing modern reinterpretation of the idea of checks and balances, putting aside that the original use of the word referred to checks and balances with regards to different branches of government. I think it would be useful to start to monitor, keep tabs or checks and balances with regards to darkness in human heart. If Second World War and the defeating of the Nazi regime and the era of communist terror which followed it, if these historical horror stories have taught us anything, it is to hold in check the inherent darkness in human heart. This means that for a while now we have desperately needed societal processes that make it more difficult for us to fall for fever dreams of reason, or being drawn into politics of division, fear, anger and hatred. And as far as I can see, the best candidate to keep these destructive impulses at bay is sciences. So far I have focused on how my vision of this new kind of party would be beneficial to our liberal democracies. But it's not only our daily political life that gains by becoming more robust and resilient with regards to anti-democratic forces. Scientific communities will benefit too. Looking at the scientific communities currently, it's like looking at the metaphor of a teenager living his or her last summer. I would like to think that introducing this new party is like forcing this late teenager to take the first steps in the world of adults as an autonomous adult who is fully aware of their responsibilities as a member of society. If there are still some scientists there who are cocooned inside the bubble of their scientific community, the idea of this party is a wake-up call. Scientists do have vital surface of connection to the rest of the society. Duty to inform, duty to warn, duty to give guidelines with regards to what could be advantageous and right for society. Another thing that I would like to mention here, scientific communities have already in place institutions which help making sure scientific results are as reliable and valid as possible. For example, submitting papers to scientific review, evaluation, dissertations, tackling with different types of scientific fraud. If my party does its job properly, it becomes another institution that strengthens scientific community's role as a role of being the bastion of truth. Just one more remark before I close this science-centered approach. I'm fully aware of the pressures an average scientist has in an average university. It's only the chosen few who have the luxury of being able to do their work in one of these elite universities, globally recognized elite universities. Most university professors, etc., they don't have that luxury. For years now, politicians, and sometimes politicians with minimal understanding of requirements of proper scientific work, have focused on cutting the public funding of universities. This has led universities to situations in which they have to find their own sources of funding without any public investment. Now, what this means is that they actually have to recruit workers to try to find sources of funding. And what that means is that money that used to go somewhere else, actually somewhere that could be related to scientific work, is taken away from those things. This has led to situations in universities, in university worlds, in which there is this fierce zero-sum infighting for research resources between and inside faculties. So it could be that faculties find themselves fighting in between faculties with regards to getting these limited resources, or it could be that there are singular departments inside faculties and they are fighting to get some of the diminishing funding that they can get. On an individual level, this means that they are put to a situation of publish or die. And this means that their academic survival depends on the amount of papers they produce and publish. Not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily depend on the quality of these papers. It's almost as if the old cadre of politicians knew in their heart of hearts, if sciences would awaken one day to their full societal potential, the days of their reign would be over, hence the necessity to put pressure on their lives. Hence the necessity to impose upon them of putting them to this rat race wheel of fighting for morsels from more and more limited supply of funding. Okay, it's time to start to make final look of broad perspective on everything that we have gone through over the course of this video essay. If we now take a look back at how the rest of the world outside my little cabin continues doing things in our current liberal democracies, it certainly looks like I am looking at a certain kind of matrix, a certain political setting in which politicians have to be and behave in a certain way, a certain matrix in which voters must choose in a certain way, a system in which political enemies are presented in a certain way. And if this is the matrix of the given, then what could be the alternative? The breaking of it? Rebellion or revolution? That all sounds a bit popular culture for me, and a bit immature, at least for my taste, if I'm honest. I think it's much more subtle, the true momentum of breaking away from this matrix. It's things like appreciating the diversity of language games, creating a thriving democracy with deeper understanding of destructive impulses inside human heart. It is understanding how democracy needs speaking truth to power like a plant needs water. I would like to think that when the future historians look at the matrix of our present-day democracies, they will be astonished at how badly democratic processes fare in terms of results of actually implemented, of policies that are actually implemented. When they go through the archives and look at the documentation attached to democratic decision-making processes, they will be struck by how much of the original intent behind legislation was lost, and almost deliberately corrupted. And how in so many cases even the most well-meaning political intentions, after going through the mill of lobbyists, special interest groups, think tanks, how actually they ended up creating more damage to the ones who needed the legislation than serving them properly. And what about my manifesto? Will it be like the idea of cult of reason during the period of French Revolution? And outlandish idea soon disposed of, removed to the trash can of history. I'd like to think the party of science-based policies this essay has manifested will have its run, will have its impact in history, and will eventually perish, lose relevance. But how can you tell a party is dead? It's not like a human being whose absence is evident after they're dead. I think one univocal marker, one distinctly clear marker for telling this party is no longer needed is when the core of what it tries to propose is no longer just one party you could vote for. Look for the signs of fourth branch of government appearing alongside judicial, legislative and executive. A fourth branch of scientific initiative or a branch of scientific council to become established societal fixture. I would say that is the ultimate goal of this party, and once this landmark of governmental branch of scientific council has been accomplished and established, it will lose its relevance and will eventually die. But maybe here I get ahead of myself. Before that, mankind has to choose. Choose what is advantageous and morally good for human societies. Choose a path in which freedom and pursuit of happiness are universally accepted as a part of human existence. Choose democracy. Thank you. It's been an honor and privilege to share with you this journey through the past, present and potential future of our more and more scientific civilization.